We've reached 4:30. We have Amy Lowell.
What more could we
We
ask
have
for?
Doug Brown. Please make sure they get in the minutes there, will you, Kristen? Okay. This should be a fairly straightforward meeting today. The first item on the agenda is the Fall Town Meeting wastewater article. It says discussion and vote. I'm not sure what we vote on, but, strategy.
Whether you support her ideas.
Or unanimous support.
So, everybody's been on this committee long enough to know. Oh, there's 3 of you that way. Okay. Take one and pass it along.
And you can trade later if, to get people we know,
Stop,
right?
stop. I have to recognize you. You do this every time. Yeah, so these are the town meeting members. It's divvied up. I would say this time around, it's not quite as mission critical as the last time to make sure that we get the money for the sewers and everything. But to the extent that you know people on the list or feel comfortable, please reach out and remind them about certain things that will be happening. Amy's going to stand up and talk in a second here. But basically, Jonathan, I don't think you're a town meeting member yet, are you?
Yeah.
You are. So you understand that there's 2 articles that come up in November. One of them is a capital items that require a 2/3 vote, and one of them is a capital item that requires a majority vote. And they're called omnibus bills because there's, I don't know, Doug, but 20 or 30 items underneath it. So we're not asking for somebody specifically to support a specific article, but just to be aware of why we're asking, why the wastewater department is putting a request in for some funding for items that we are concerned about, okay? So to the extent we speak with any of our constituents or people on this list, just remind them that we do a good job with eyes and ears on what needs to be done, and that the monies that are being asked for are all reasonable. The finance committee thinks so, and others do so. With that, I'm turning it over to you, Amy. I think you got 3 or 4 items. Just let us know about, okay?
You told me I didn't need to make a presentation, but I couldn't help it. Irresistible.
I spoke to her at like 2:30 today, and she was kind of anxious about everything on her plate. I said, you don't have to make a presentation, so how you did this, I have no idea.
Well, it's not a wow presentation, but it is just will help guide me through this. So I guess I'll start by saying there are 3 articles at town meeting that include wastewater or nutrient management related articles that I've had anything to do with.
You back up one slide, there you go.
What's that? Yeah, so Article 4, I'm getting Article 2 and 3, I'm taking them out of order because I wanted to start with the outfall. But Article 4, as Steve mentioned, there are 2 capital articles up at the front of the warrant book. Article 3 is a longer list of items, and that article only requires a majority vote. Article 4 requires a 2/3 majority because the proposed funds are coming from a debt stabilization fund. So that's just the rules on the, with that funding source.
Take a
So
pause.
Article 4.
Take a pause.
Hey,
Hey.
how you doing, Ken? We're talking about town meeting articles
Okay.
that are wastewater related. So Article 4 requires a 2/3 majority because of the funds are proposed to come from from a debt stabilization fund. Capital and debt, they now call it. And that's, there are, to my knowledge, 2 items under Article 4. One is the outfall next funding step, and the other is Brick Kiln Road water main improvements that are gonna be, we're working with the water department during the Great Pond Phase 1 project to get the water main installed in Brick Kiln Road at the same time, because as part of the next project, we've got to put a force main, we got to install a force main from the Augusta parcel, our Brick Kiln Road lift station site, up to the plant. That's taking us through Brick Kiln Road. The water department needs to close close the loop there and install a new water main. So they're requesting funding to add that to the project. Yeah.
If I was an ornery member of town meeting and didn't understand the outfall and thought it was awful,
Yep.
could I make a motion to cut it out and leave the water main?
Yeah. People can always make motions.
So we need a good argument for the outfall.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And I will be prepared to
I
make
know
that.
what they are, but
Yeah, I'll be prepared to make that. So this is the page that's in the warrant book for the outfall, and I don't mean for you to be able to read it on the screen. I just included it to show you what it looks like, and this will be in the town meeting warrant book. The standard form shows what the original request is, which is what the request is, which is $1.34 million for the next steps in the outfall project, which is conceptual design, say 30% design of, in particular, the outfall portion itself, the part offshore, because we need to complete that in order to apply for some of the permits for the project. And then the draft and final environmental impact report and the initial permitting for the project. You all are very familiar with the work that's been going on the outfall over the last couple of years, so I won't get into that in detail now, though I'm glad to if you want to talk more about it. I will say, while I'm thinking of it, you did support the submittal of the environmental notification form for the outfall, which went in at the beginning of September. That, the comment period for that was just extended to October 21st, based on the request of a couple of the reviewing agencies. So the comment period for that was supposed to close yesterday, and it's open now until October 21st, but we expect they have 10 days, MEPA has 10 days after that, the comments are received to issue a certificate on the environmental notification form. So I wasn't.
So to that point, Amy.
Yeah.
You put a certain dollar request in at this time.
Yep,
Based upon best available information about what we have to do.
yep,
We have a narrow window between when the comments come in from the state to determine if what we're asking for is appropriate. If we all feel that more money is necessary to deal with what's coming up from the state in their comments on the ENF, we can amend this amount on the floor.
yeah, I certainly hope not to do that.
I hope not to do that. I just want to be sure that we all understand that if something in the ENF makes us look at it, you, me, other people that are all deeply involved in this, and say, wow, this is a $200,000 thing we've got to do we didn't expect,
Right.
that we're not going to add a year to everything. We could present that on town meeting floor and explain why we got to get a little more funding, okay?
Right. We have, as you know, been in discussions with the regulators over the last couple of years, so we felt like we were qualified at this point to prepare a scope and a budget to finish this next stage. But you're right, we will get additional information at the end of October.
I feel we're in good shape, but, you never know where the curveball's coming from sometimes, so.
Absolutely.
We don't want to have the project stalled from a curveball. We want to keep it going.
You can always amend on town meeting floor if you get a $200,000 item that you weren't prepared for, you can just change that.
Right, I plucked this out just to have the conversation. I think we're good, based on what I've seen and know. But we don't have their comments yet, and they asked for another few weeks.
Right. And the bottom of the form shows that it is, the funds are to come from capital and debt stabilization. Unless there's anything more anybody wants to talk about that, I was
do
going
you
to.
want another devil's advocate question, or would you prefer that
Yes,
afterwards?
of course. I would love a devil's advocate question.
Okay.
Speak, Satan, speak.
So
Let the
if-
minutes reflect that.
So if it's 1.3 million for 30%, the total designs of the order of 4.5 million.
No, doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way, okay.
No. So,
Well, I'll shorten it down. So what's the whole project cost, and what's that divided by the number of properties that will be sewered?
No sewers. This is the outfall. It's a pipe from the
I
treatment
know,
plant.
but the reason for doing it is not just to see a nice pipe go out into Maynard Sound, it's so you can build sewers.
so we, right now, are holding in the 10-year capital plan, $80 million for the outfall itself, and either $7 or $8 million for design and final permitting of this. Those are numbers those are very preliminary numbers, because we don't even have the design.
You know, I don't care about the details, I just
Yep.
wanted the rough figure of, you take
Yep.
that, you add all that up and divide it by the number of
I have not divided
properties.
it by the number of properties.
Okay. I
Well,
mean,
number of properties over what time frame? Because
Right.
Yeah,
And
we don't have
there are
that
other-
number, we don't
yeah,
have that
there are
number in
other
front of us. I
costs.
wrote it down. We'll get it for you, Steve.
Yep. Those costs will be refined based on the design, but they're pretty darn conservative numbers.
We're thinking with using the reserve.
You might have to step to the
funds
micro,
rather than-
you might have to step to the microphone. You'll be getting picked up? Okay.
I don't know.
Still have to identify yourself.
Sorry.
Hi, Doug Brown, Select Board. What was the thinking with the, using the stabilization funds that needs a two-thirds vote rather than just some other regular funds?
That's a question for the finance director and the town management, but I believe, so my initial funding request was split into a draft and a final cost, and the draft and final for the environmental impact report. And the idea was to request the final amount in April. And it was pointed out to me, or that really should be a November request. And so, and it's a large request for November. So I think that looking at funding sources available is how they came to that.
So try to help you understand a little bit. A key part, when it says 30% design, that's a generic sort of, no, it's a generic statement. But we need to permit the outfall with the Army Corps of Engineers. And so most of that, a big portion of that money is going to be to get a real, basically almost bid-ready design for the directional drilling, the diffusers, and everything else, so we can submit it to the Army Corps of Engineers and let them take 5 years to figure out what they've got in front of them. I'm being facetious, but it's a key element not to, to be able to get a big piece of the design that's critical to the permitting process done and in front of the permitting agencies.
So I wouldn't characterize it's not going to be bid ready, what we get for the outfall itself.
But it'll be very definitive, so the Army Corps of Engineers can read it and comment on it.
It's
We
really
should-
just a conceptual,
Yeah, we should talk more about that before town meeting, because, so that we're ready to characterize how detailed that level
We
of
should.
design is.
But,
my question really was just why the stabilization funds, it needs a two-thirds vote
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
regular, like free cash or something.
Yeah, it's a finance director question, but that's my understanding. Finance director and town management. Article 3 is additional capital improvements, and this is the one that requires a majority vote, and it has a whole lot of different articles in it, or different items, projects in it. There are 3 wastewater projects included. One is a draft watershed plan for all of Falmouth's state-designated nitrogen-sensitive areas. The next is sewer lift station resiliency improvements, and the last is wastewater system equipment rehabilitation and replacement. So the draft watershed plan for all Falmouth state-designated nitrogen-sensitive areas, I gave a presentation to the Water Quality Management Committee in July on this. This concept, John gave a presentation, I think at the same meeting, about how we should accelerate the planning process, and for a lot of good reasons. And so this is the concept here, as we talked about in more detail in July, develop a plan for all of the watersheds that have TMDLs in town for how we're going to meet those TMDLs. And we know that the two primary means of doing that will be sewers and denitrifying septic systems. But it is, for a lot of purposes, it's really becoming very clear that we need that plan as soon as we are able, because, for example, the Board of Health has been struggling with their septic system, their denitrifying septic system, they call it IA, I believe, regulation, and where to draw the lines for where IAs will be required. And it also is very important to look at the whole picture, to talk about financing, to plan for the financing. So Kristen with ScienceWares, Kristen Rathjen with ScienceWares has done a tremendous job of evaluating this on a preliminary basis with the Water Quality Management Committee over the past year or so. And GHD has also done an enormous amount of work on a lot of these watersheds, but not all of them in the past. So we're starting with a lot of background here, and we need to finish the job, or we need to get a draft plan that puts that information in a written document for the public and go through the public discussion of that. So that's the concept here. The request is for $380,000. And that is for, I've asked ScienceWares, Kristen, to take a lead role in this with support from GHD to prepare that plan.
Amy, does that budget include getting somebody that knows municipal finance to be able to verify for projected costs models that might be available to finance it?
It does not right now. The scope of work and the concept for this has been for the consultants and the town to develop that model.
So there'll be a follow-on piece to figure out the financing side.
If the town is unable to do it without that, then definitely.
What's the amount for this line item?
This is $380,000.
Ken?
How close will the draft plan be to something that would be ready for submission to the state?
So the town would need to follow up with individual submissions, watershed permit submissions. So this is not intended to take us through watershed permit submission, but it's intended to provide the background that's needed to do that. There is, this is not through final because there's a public process, and I think the goal is to prepare this, or the plan is to prepare this in the next year. And if the town can get it through to final in the next year, that is terrific. But I don't think there's a guarantee of that.
Mm-hmm. More money required to get to the final?
If necessary, yes. I really, it's really I think all of the information we believe we need to make these decisions is available and is going to be included in this plan. The question is whether the town can, the town needs to then approve the plan.
Right. So, over the last year, we've developed what's known as the contingency plan under the regulations for the watershed plans, i.e., you rely upon sewers and IAs, and you live with your existing plan of where you're going to go for comprehensive wastewater management. This is going to take us through what I would call the next step, and I don't want to characterize it as 80% or 85 or 90, but we're not going to be far from what it takes to put together watershed permit applications, okay? We'll have done analysis, we'll look at areas, we'll have maps, there'll be some numbers attached to it, and then there's some paperwork to actually put the permits together. Is that a fair assessment,
Yeah,
Amy?
absolutely. That this would be the basis for the watershed permit applications.
Yeah. Ed?
Is this intended then to supersede the schedule of 4 plans over 4 years, starting at the end of next year, first one due, that we committed to the state, and they said, okay, go for this, here's the 4 watershed plans, and each one of those had multiple estuaries in it. Instead of 14 plans, we were going to do 4. Is this going to replace that, or accelerate it?
We're leaving that timetable in place for now, Ed. Let's get through the next year,
Yep,
okay?
yep.
And then look at what it's like, look at the numbers, look at the cost, look at the financing, and we can always submit earlier, okay? But we have to submit by the dates that we got.
Right.
Yep.
That was, what we submitted was a plan to meet the deadlines. If the town is ready to move forward to do these things earlier, we certainly can and will submit the permit applications earlier.
Well, and by definition, you have to hear from
Gotta
the
raise
town.
your hand so I can
I'm
recognize
sorry.
you. Satan.
Right? I mean,
I recognize you, go ahead.
I said, by definition, you have to wait for the public input.
That's
That's
part
the
of
purpose.
that's
Yes.
part of the, getting to the
Part
final
of the
plans.
process.
And they might have some good ideas,
They might have some good ideas.
and then it would be
We're
different.
hoping they have good
Yeah.
ideas.
But and then by definition, it would be different, so.
John, you want to chime in here? The other John.
No, I'll wait till she's,
Okay, thank you.
Finished with this one or with?
with your 3 articles you're going to review.
Okay. The next is sewer lift station resiliency improvements. So the request was $160,000. The finance folks have proposed that 75,000 of that be paid for with the remaining unallocated Air Force Center for Environmental Excellence funds.
That's not what's on. I mean, that's not what's on.
No,
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Shows the whole thing.
Right, so there are 3, let's see, a few things here. So finishing up on the cost, that would be a remaining $85,000 in the appropriation for this. The town has, so the AFSI money, which is Air Force Center for Environmental Excellence money, you probably all know, was provided to the town many years ago by the Air Force to offset, to compensate the town for the impacts of the wastewater treatment plant discharge at the base. And the town has used that money over time for land purchases related to wastewater, related to nutrient mitigation, and for many planning and design documents, including a lot of the work leading up to the Maravista and T-Ticket designs. And it's been used over the past number of years for ScienceWare's support. This will take us down to no remaining unallocated funds. There is, so the committee voted $78,000 a year for 3 years, I think was the last number, for ScienceWare's. There will be some amount of money left over.
That's Article 17. That's different.
You're absolutely right.
Yep.
I was
ScienceWare's
on a
was never
tear,
AFSI.
saying the wrong thing. You're right. There's $75,000 remaining in AFSI money. I have a spreadsheet. Don't worry, I just screwed it up in my head just there.
You're forgiven.
Thank you for the correction, though. Wouldn't want the wrong account going on the record. Anyway, that's the AFSI fund. So this is for 3 lift stations, the Water Street lift station, Surf Drive lift station, and Inner Harbor lift station. And the town got a grant in 2022 under which we did conceptual design of these improvements. And now I'm just pushing it over the next line, which is to get design and bid documents prepared for this. These are things like raising the vents and the air intakes on the lift stations and raising the electrical shutoffs for the lift stations, putting in a bypass pumping connection point at the Surf Drive lift station. These are things that will make those 3 stations that are right on the water more protected from floodwaters. They are not hurricane proofing. They are not, making these stations ironclad. They are making reasonable steps to make them more flood resistant. And the town's going to need to do additional work in the future to decide what happens in the long term with not only the lift stations, but also the sewers and the communities right along utilities for the communities right along the water. Any questions about that?
This new grant program that's out just specifically for coastal resiliency improvements in infrastructure.
Right.
That's something we can reimburse to do.
So we did use one of those grants to do the conceptual design that led to this. This is the next step. The next one I didn't want to spend too much time on, it's wastewater system equipment rehabilitation and replacement. I ask for funds in this category every year for major equipment rehabilitation and replacement. This year, we're asking for a 4-inch and a 6-inch bypass pump to allow us to pump around one of the lift stations if the generator and/or pumps fail at that lift station, and it's an emergency system. We had a pump, 4-inch pump, like the one that's shown on that picture that is more than 20 years old and is no longer usable. We also use it to bypass or to move water from one tank to another during maintenance at the wastewater treatment facility. It's also, the other thing in here is for rehabilitation of one of the 3 SBRs once the new 3rd SBR starts up.
What's the amount?
The amount is $135,000 requested, and during a meeting with the finance director and the town management, we were all asked to identify accounts that had remaining funds in them that might be applicable to new articles, and I identified $45,000 in an article that we're still completing the purpose there, but we're not going to need as much money as we thought. So the final amount is 135 minus 45, $90,000. The last article I wanted to mention was Article 10 is to authorize a special act for reimbursement for grinder pumps. And it's to be clear, it's not just reimbursement, it's the purchase. It also will cover the town's purchase of the grinder pumps and then reimbursement of property owners. It allows the town to do this. It doesn't set up a procedure to do this, but it would authorize the town to use municipal funds to reimburse property owners for installation of grinder pumps on private property. The town passed a very similar article, and then special legislation was passed for the Little Pond project. That legislation was worded, it had the words Little Pond project in it. So the goal here is to
Generally.
have one that will apply to this and future projects. It does not obligate the town to spend this money, but it allows the town to spend this money in this way.
So
Ken, go ahead.
I'm just curious about the details of if you are putting in a grinder pump, how much reimbursement, are there income, like if I happen to be a really wealthy guy, do I still get it, et cetera?
So none of those details have been worked out for this project. I spoke at a couple of select board meetings about this, and we went through what the previous grinder pump policy was and what the previous reimbursements were based on. I am assuming the policy will be similar, but it may not be exactly the same.
So can you give me some sense of what the previous
Sure,
policy?
the town bought all the grinder pumps for single-family residential property owners, and residential condo units, but not commercial and not large multifamily developments, and provided those to the property owners when they were in the permitting process for connection, or when they'd completed the permitting process for connection. The town agreed to maintain the grinder pumps in perpetuity and install new pumps when they reach the end of their useful life. Very big deal, very big commitment. In addition, the town agreed to provide backup power or generator pump down when in the condition of a power outage, a street power outage. That is the one condition I'd like to definitely limit going forward. It is something we've been able to do on a limited basis so far, but would be a big challenge on a large scale.
So you paid for the equipment, but you did not necessarily pay for the installation of the equipment?
Sorry, that wasn't clear. We did not pay for the installation up front. The property owners were responsible for they had to get a contractor, and the plumber and the electrician and
Right.
get them installed. And then, once they'd closed out their permits, they were provided a reimbursement. And the reimbursement was $1,800 per property owner, regardless of their income or their property value or anything. And it was, $1,800 was based on the average difference between the cost to install a grinder pump sewer connection and the cost to install a gravity pump sewer connection. So the goal was to have it not based on individual properties and all their costs, because it's, there are many, many properties, and that would be a lot of work. But to have it, and
It was a flat, essentially a flat fee.
it was a flat reimbursement that was provided to grinder pump people who'd installed these town-provided grinder pump property owners. So it's not intended to completely reimburse them, it's a partial reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ed?
Just refresh my memory, if you will. As I recall, the reason the reimbursement money was available in the Little Pond project was we went out to bid, we get good bids, we had a certain amount of money to spend, the work came in under the allocated amounts, and there was an amount left over. And that was the origins of the reimbursement, because it was, well, we got some money, how about we help out the people who had to do grinder pumps? So it was kind of there was money there, let's spend it this way. I mean, that's the way I recall it. So I think it set sort of a dangerous precedent, but
The vote had been a partial reambrsement. The policy was voted that there'd be a partial reimbursement. We didn't actually implement the reimbursement until very, after most of the connections, if not all of the connections, had been completed. So it was at the end of the project. And for the Great Pond Phase 1 project, that appropriation amount, that was the amounts that were appropriated for that project, included an estimate of grinder pump reimbursement cost if the town votes to do that. And it's based on the same number. It's based on $1,800, because both costs have gone up, was the logic. So it's supposed to be reflect the difference, not the actual cost. So that's it. The town has the flexibility, assuming all the costs come out the way we've estimated them, or most of the costs come out the way we've estimated them.
So I just want to kind of highlight a point. On Little Pond, it was very specific to the Little Pond project, recognizing going forward that this might be the approach on the grinder pumps as we march down the peninsulas. This particular article says certain property owners in any future town sewer service area. So this is taking from our experience in Little Pond, saying that that's what we want to do going forward, and locking us in a little bit going forward. So I think it's actually useful, so you don't have to come back on every sewer project as we go forward and we look at the cost savings, I mean, the big picture goes like this. The cost of putting gravity sewers versus putting in the grinder pumps is pretty significant.
Absolutely.
Okay? And so the town benefits from a lower capital cost when we, embrace the grinder pump philosophy. And we're just making it a pathway for getting grinder pumps, getting them available to people, getting them to be installed in. So the grinder pumps ultimately become sort of part of the sewer system, if you will, not a homeowner purchased item. They're part of the sewer system. And it's a lower cost than digging deep pipes and connecting everything up. I think it's good that you're covering future sewer service areas.
And this is not the special legislation, this is the article that authorizes
Right.
the town to submit that. Maura O'Keefe, the town's council, will draft that and
Yep.
send that around. I did want to reiterate, though, it doesn't require the town to buy the pumps in the future or reimburse in the future, but it allows the town the ability to do that under the law. It's definitely precedent
It's been
setting.
a good model. There's no
Yeah.
reason to blow it up. Steve?
I'm curious to know a little bit more about the power failure scenario. I assume there's some sort of tank, which is normally kept pumped down by the grinder pumps.
It's a very small tank.
Okay, but you have a little bit of a buffer while that fills up.
Not much.
What, how much, 12 hours? It obviously depends on the family and whether
It's
they're
a
taking
small
long
tank.
showers, et cetera, et cetera.
It's, I looked at it lately, but maybe 24 gallons.
Wow, that
It's- No, the tank is 70 gallons, but you have between
Yeah,
the
yeah.
low shut off and the high level, where it starts to back up, up the gravity.
So
inlet.
you-
But Steve, I'm going to do this for you. Under a power outage, you no longer get hot water. You no longer can run your dishwasher. It's basically flushing the toilet, okay?
Yeah.
So it's the hours, it would be nice if it was a bigger tank, but the experience with E1s has not been a crisis yet, right?
No,
No.
I'm not proposing anyone do anything different, I'm just curious how it works.
Yep,
So you could have a lot of hot water stored in your hot water heater and say, oh, it's a power failure, I can't watch TV, I'm going to go take a shower. Well,
Right.
use up the hot water. Is there some sort of alarm, or is the
Yes.
alarm a piece of paper that you send to everybody that says, don't do this?
both. We've tried to do a good job on education, but, properties are rented, there's turnover. And there is it's called a remote sentry, which is a little box that looks like an alarm, a burglar alarm on the wall inside the house. And that alarms, it has batteries in it, so it alarms, it's connected to the level switch in the tank. So it alarms when your pump level gets low and there's no power.
Okay,
There's no
so-
power
So
to
you have a
alarm in other
reasonable
ways.
chance of a reasonable notice that there's a problem.
Yes.
And then you either get a generator or you stop creating wastewater.
We encourage people to reduce water use in a power outage unless they have a backup
Thank you.
generator. I will say, you said the grinder pumps haven't been a big issue. The town does do maintenance, pay for maintenance on the grinder pumps. I'm not saying they're maintenance-free, but I have gotten virtually no complaints about the grinder pumps. And in fact, we got a call from somebody last week who'd had a grinder pump for 4 years and didn't know they had it. So these things
Remarkable.
have been a success as far as how they run in the collection system.
And we're not the first community to use grinder pumps. They've been used in a number of communities up and down
Oh, yeah.
the East Coast and the
Yep,
West Coast.
they're used all
and
over the
every
place.
else, so.
There are a lot of people that don't know they have septic tanks.
Right, but that's sort of par for the course, right? But, it's proof that, or it's evidence that the grinder pumps are
Right.
working out for people that they wouldn't know they have that either.
John, you have any, John, you're holding group comments till the end.
A general, okay.
No, you want to wait till you heard it all. I think you've heard it all.
Yeah. You want to go first? Bill?
I was just going to say, we've had grinder pumps in Woods Hole for 20 years, down by the Coast Guard base.
Yep, there are 5 of them down there. It's up to Steve. I'm not in charge.
I know, I'm raising
No,
my
we're going to
finger.
John at the far end.
Okay.
And we're on the general question. So, going back to the first article, number 4, you showed briefly that one pager that kind of had the cost table, then some sort of summary of the project. I really couldn't read it
Yeah.
there, but is that what is given out to all the town meeting members, so they have some sort of information,
Yes.
literature
Back of the
background that they can base their vote on? So for something like this, where it's a big ticket item, number 4 for the, and a critical one for the outfall funding, is it clearly stated in the upfront paragraph, what is the main driver, what is the criticality of this, that it's a fundamental step that has to occur in order to proceed really with the large-scale sewering plans that we have for the town, and without an outfall pipe that really, has a domino effect on everything? Well, most town meeting members fully understand that. That's why they're going to approve a fairly sizable number. And do you go to the various precinct meetings before town meeting to kind of help reinforce that message, and how can we help in our capacity? Because,
Thank you.
not everybody is very technical on these sorts of, town meeting committees. Some are, many aren't, and how do we get them to fully appreciate how critical this step is?
Jonathan, there's a piece of paper in front of you with a list of town meeting members, okay? Everybody's got their list. Tonight's presentation is for us to understand what's going on, the need for things. And then we all are obligated to do our best to reach out, either email, phone call, or whatever, and remind everybody of what this is and why we need their vote, okay? So part of our job is to reach out to people. If somebody says, I don't know anything about the outfall, say, okay, let me get you some information, okay? Amy's done a good job. We've kept it there's a woman sitting here who writes us up every week and, says, we need an outfall, we need an outfall. When are we going to get an outfall? We need an outfall. We only need one outfall. But the push here is, it's a very small group of people, a couple hundred, 220, whatever. We've divvied it up. Do our best over the next few weeks. Let people know this is coming up, that this is a key step in a key piece of our wastewater needs to keep the outfall moving, okay?
Will there be a fact sheet that, like the last vote we had, like a one-pager, that if there's specific questions?
Yeah, we
that-
can generate a
I
fact sheet
think that
for
would
you.
be helpful.
We can generate a fact sheet
I'm
for
familiar
you.
with this project, but I never heard this proposed potential number for the, because they're gonna ask, right, what's the projected cost? And even though it's a projected conservative cost, I'd like to have some numbers and a basis for
No,
that.
no, we can put something, we can
So
put
yeah,
something
what's
together.
on this sheet, or what's on the slide is the sheet that goes, it's a capital request sheet that's provided, that this is a standard form that we use to make requests for funding. And these sheets go into the back of the town warrant book. They didn't always, but they're now in the back of the town warrant book. Plenty of people don't read the back of the town warrant books, so there are plenty of people who don't look at it. This says, this is all the space you have. I used to make these, my background, like 3 or 4 sheets, and all they ever printed was the first one. So this is the space you have, but it says an offshore outfall is an essential part of the town's plan to improve coastal pond water quality and meet regulatory nitrogen load limits for the pond. Completion of the outfall will allow the town to cease its existing groundwater discharge and to expand its sewer collection system to serve densely developed areas of town. But we can provide a fact sheet as well.
Develop a little
Also,
fact
you
sheet.
guys, I hope you
Is
know.
that wording finalized, or is it subject to any kind of editorial?
That's printed.
So this is what's going in the warrant.
I know, but has it already gone into the warrant?
Yes, yes. Yeah, everything had to be
Yeah, this
submitted by the
is, we're not going
29th.
to be able to change this
Okay,
wording. We can change wording on a fact sheet, but we can't change
Gotcha.
this wording now. I forgot. Fact sheet. Anyway, yes, we can do a fact sheet.
Okay.
It's a good idea.
Oh, I don't know, I got dueling fingers. Ken?
I wanted to go back to the power question of submitting emergency power, and just out of curiosity mostly, but how do you go about doing that for dispersed homes over, several blocks or whatever it is?
So we have not had to do it on a large scale. And so I clarified to people that first of all, the power has to have been out for 24 hours, and we're only gonna pump once a day per property if we can. That we're gonna do the best we can, but in certain circumstances, there may be trees down, there may be
Right.
flooding, we can't, this is not a promise of you're always gonna have this. But so far since 2016, the most pumps we've ever had to pump down was 18 in a storm,
Okay.
out of 681.
But they have a generator they can go by and hook up to.
Yeah. it was
Individual
portable.
homes, so you gotta go home by home.
Yeah,
by home.
yeah, what
So-
they
so
do
that's-
is,
I'm just remembering Hurricane Bob, and I think we went,
It was great.
I think we went on our street, almost a week without power.
yeah.
And, I just can't envision what you would do, but,
So the town cannot provide
porta
pump down,
potties. I don't know.
power for everybody. As Steve pointed out, when the power's out, so there are a lot of different circumstances, right? A lot of time, when the power is out, the population is very reduced here. A lot of the storms we've had since these happened were in the winter, when these seasonal communities have much lower occupancy. When you don't have electricity, you don't use as much water. There are a lot of
But
extenuating
the basic
circumstances.
strategy is you take a generator or a couple generators and you go visit each house.
And what you do is plug that small generator's on the back of a truck, you plug it into the control panel, you run the pump until the shut off, and then you go to the next house,
And that takes 15 minutes?
approximately.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But there's also, keep in mind that, a lot of people are savvy enough to say, I'm gonna have my own emergency
Well,
generator.
sure,
Okay?
sure, yeah.
So, it's not like there's 700
Right.
of these homes out there, and there's 700 homes to worry
Okay,
about.
I'm just trying to get
It's a
my-
slightly different number.
Wrap my mind around that
Yeah.
issue,
And as a homeowner, I've got to think that, if I'm on the cusp of putting my own emergency generator in, and I've got a grinder pump.
This would be
And I think about things, I
significant
might say,
incentive, yeah.
I might, it's worth the $1,500 or $2,000 to throw that generator on. I think I had a hand over here that beat you, Ed, so I'm going to go to Steve, okay?
Back to this sheet, just for the benefit of John. The last time I did this, just keep in mind, the yield is very low. I mean, you can do it any way you want, of course. You can use email or phone or door to door, but I called all the numbers. 95% of them, if not higher, you get an answering machine or nothing, just rings. And so you've got to leave a reasonably short message. Hi, I'm so-and-so from this committee. Be happy to answer any questions you have on these articles. Here's my number, give me a call if you want. You get almost no return calls. You get, on this whole list, you get about 2 or 3 people that call you back. And one of them is somebody who's a good friend of yours anyway, and they're just calling up to say hi.
Yeah, But I go around to every house, I don't even call, I just go to the address and knock on the door and say, hi.
Seriously?
I'm Steve Rafford from the Water Quality Management Committee, how you doing? Can I talk to you about Article 4?
You actually do that?
I've done it.
Wow.
I emailed everyone, and I got half a dozen responses.
The point of this is, for every person that doesn't pick up, there's somebody that will pick up or will respond, and we build momentum to
Oh,
walk into
absolutely.
town.
I'm not, it's a perfectly appropriate process. I just was telling John from the standpoint of time planning and so on, that a whole bunch of these people
No,
are not going to respond.
So we should give at least a little bit of an informative message that says,
Yeah.
without this, we can't move forward with affordable housing
Yeah.
or anything else.
And we're fortunate, I mean, we are an elected town meeting, most of these people are very, this is not the first town meeting that this issue is coming in front of them. I think you're gonna have some small presentation, Amy, or not, maybe. about the outfall and where we're
We'll
at.
definitely have it available. I'll have a presentation about the outfall and the watershed permitting
Yeah.
available.
So, you know,
What, not watershed permitting, watershed plan.
watershed plan, there'll be informative messages, so.
Oh, what's the date of the town meeting?
The 15th, 14th, 13th? Yeah, second week of November. We have 5 or 6 weeks from now.
Yeah.
All right.
So don't need to look at it.
You know, we don't need to look up the exact date.
Thank you.
All right? Did you have a question?
I did not have a question, just to, you know, I'm more familiar with the actual practice of the grinder pumps living in the heights, and, you know, a lot of my neighbors and people closer to the water than I am. I have a gravity, but they have the pumps. They've been basically trouble-free in the event of power failures, and we've had very, very few extended power failures in the last 10 years. The company, the electric company has done a lot of upgrade and strengthening of the system to prevent extended power failures. And I would say probably 40% or more of the people that have a grinder pump in the heights have put in a generator for,
Yeah.
not just because they want to keep their grinder pump active, but for their lights. These are, most of the folks, especially closer to the water, which happens to be where the pumps are well off. They can afford, it's a second home, they throw in a whole house generator, which probably costs 10 grand, and it has enough amperage, and it's got the 220 to run that grinder pump. When the pump fails or gets overloaded, you're full and there's no power, a red light goes off and it sounds an audible alarm. Some people didn't like the alarm and they unplugged the audible, so they just got the red light. But the power failures have been few and far between. But that's been a problem. I know it's been a problem in West Falmouth on the IA systems, where people get sick of hearing the alarms go off. But the system works. I was a doubter of grinder pumps when it was first proposed. I thought they were out of their mind on water quality to propose it. I've become a believer. They work effectively, they're pretty much trouble-free. You know, when you know power's gonna go off, or, you know, there's a big storm coming, it might make sense to run it so it's pumped all the way down. And now you get 50, 60 gallons of capacity, rather than, ooh, my pump is just about ready to trip and the power's out, so now I only got 20 gallons.
How do you think it come on? It's a float.
Fill it up with water and trigger the float switch and it'll run. And it'll drain it all
When
the
you're
way
an
to the bottom.
engineer, you
Well,
know how
sure.
to do that.
But, you know,
People figure this out.
but, you know, it works.
Fill your
It
bathtubs with
triples
water.
your capacity, your buffer, and you go use very little water. But, you know, it works. And people that don't understand it ask the questions, and, you know,
I always think
great presentation,
we're
Amy.
learning as much about grinder pumps as we know about urine diversion. It's fascinating.
At least it's good, you know, the grid in East Falmouth is pretty reliable, and it comes back probably the first in town. It's such a densely populated area that I think they focus on that first.
Yep. All right, Amy, thank you for that. Everybody's kind of up to speed on what these different articles are. That we've got our list to call, email, go knock on the doors, whatever we want to do. You get to meet some nice people that way. Anyhow, we're going to move on, if that's okay, to item 2. Kristen, I think this is on you a little bit, right?
Sure.
Is there, you don't have to vote on that stuff? I thought
It's a discussion and vote. I don't know if we need to vote. I mean, does anybody want to make a motion to support the articles that Amy's got?
I so moved that the water quality management go on record as supporting the wastewater articles. And
Second.
And I've got a second already. Any further comment or discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right, thank you. Aye, aye. The next one is the Shower Drive PRB.
So the last meeting, Matt Charette gave the update for the last 2 years of sampling, and he made a recommendation to continue the sampling for another 2 years, so every 6 months to do a monitoring interval. The last time the funding allocated was not to exceed $6,500, and the final invoices for all 4 came in at $6,400. So that's, costs have gone up. If you're gonna do it again, I would add a little bit more to that for the next 2 years. But that's the information on what the last round cost.
So, Amy, what I heard is the AFCE money is being allocated someplace else. So it's not clear where we would fund this from at this time. You have any thoughts on it? I guess maybe the first thing is a little bit of a philosophical question. We got a nice presentation last meeting, about this is continuing to be effective. I guess, how much money does the town want to invest in continuing research to see how long the emulsified vegetable oils last? Or do we decide that we know that emulsified vegetable oils work and perhaps move on to the Snug Harbor project, which is moving along, and use that as a benchmark? So there's no immediate pot of money, and funding it for another couple of years may or may not be our best expenditure funds. That's my personal opinion, but I'll let Amy talk about where money might come from, and then let's hear what people think about continuing this.
I sort of agree with what what you were saying just now, but the only
We're in agreement?
Yeah.
Shocking.
The only funding source I am aware of would be Article 17, thank you for the correction, what would be left over that ScienceWares hasn't used. I would, that just, what I was going to say earlier was that ScienceWares has not spent all of its allocated funds under its contract each of the last 3 years. So there will be some, say $30,000 or so, $25,000 left over at the end of that. You may want to consider that, using that again for Kristen, but it's up to you.
Contract is up at the end of the year, by the way.
Right, so there's, and that's the only funding source I know of for that as well.
So I guess, again, my personal opinion, I'd rather pay for ScienceWare doing the great job they're doing for us than funding additional sampling of the PRB. Go ahead, Ken.
Well, I disagree. We've spent several $100,000, right, to install this thing, and we've stuck this 2-year dose in, and it really would be useful to know how long and why is it continuing for so long, because, if this approach, which has value, clearly, is going to be used in the future, knowing something about the appropriate dosing is important.
But funding this means that we probably don't have Kristen working for us
Well,
next year.
I'm just saying it's cheap money. I mean, if we're talking $7,000, I mean, I'm looking at Doug. Is there not 7,000? What is our budget, 130 million?
Yeah, how are we gonna know when it's time to re-inject? If it's working, we should keep it working. And if
Well,
it's
we
not,
won't know unless we can see it failing. That's, okay. So I'm looking at you because,
Well, maybe you guys should vote to send a letter to the select board and the town manager and say, we've identified a need for funding, figure it out.
Hold off, I want to let everybody speak first. Go ahead, Steve. You have something to say?
Yes. Well, you told me to raise my hand. What about changing the frequency? I mean, could somebody tell me something about the proposed frequency of measurement? Maybe it only needs to be done once a year instead of once every 3 months or some such.
or twice a year.
Kristen, what do we sample now?
So during the actual grant period, we sampled quarterly. After that funding ended, it went to every 6 months, basically so that you could have kind of a 6-month, here's where it actually stopped working, to back calculate of, it was a 2-year dose and it went 6.5 years versus 7 to get slightly more accurate.
Yeah.
Right, the longer you are out, the less frequent the measurements need to be, just common sense.
But it's gonna die at some point, so.
Right.
Right, but we don't need to know exactly when, because no other system is going to be exactly like it anyway.
Right.
It's not a precision measure.
How much will it cost to re-inject?
Well, that would be expensive.
Would be expensive, and I don't think there's thoughts to re-inject it because the houses that it's capturing are slated for sewering.
Right.
So it doesn't really make
I thought it was
sense.
a plume that was coming from,
That's what they
farther-
originally thought, and it's not.
oh, okay.
So what's the frequency proposed for this?
Matt proposed to continue at 6 months.
So we could
So
cut the
that would
cost
get
in
another
half
2 years.
by doing it once a year,
Or you extend it to 4 years if you do it once a year.
right?
It's a good point, though, if we're not gonna be re-injecting.
Ed?
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile. It's small money. I think the committee ought to send a letter to the town manager and the select board saying, can you find something in a budget to continue this? It's important data, because if this works, 2 times at least, if not 3 or 4 times longer than projected, we know something for future projects, and this technology may have increased applications as we address our overall watershed planning. It begs the other question that you just brought up, and Kristen mentioned, that the contract ends the end of this year or next year?
This year?
What do we do to continue that, and how do we go about
Well, there's,
getting funds for that?
there's Article 17, so I think we limp through another year, but yeah, down the road it's.
Create a water quality management fund.
Right, to support the necessary technical assistance that we require to do an effective
Probably
job.
becomes an item under Amy's budget someplace that gets added for the April town meeting. Okay.
But, I think that needs to be recognized and become part of,
Maybe that should be part of the letter too, and say, that it's come to our attention that the AFSCME funds are gonna be no longer available. Might need a new funding source, and you might need a.
so that it's part of their planning, your planning, Doug, and the rest of your board going forward, because I think without the technical assistance, how do you function as a board? This is a real technical business.
I want to throw a small factual item in here if I can.
Please.
So initially, this project said we thought we were going to have these many homes and this amount of water flux at a certain concentration coming by us. And the amount of oil injected was based upon that. The reality is that we saw a lot less flow
Right.
than we saw. So, at the end of the day, that all has to be factored in. It's not like this thing we thought was going to be expired in 2 years is now magically going multiple years longer. The amount of nitrogen coming by has been a lot lower than we thought. And that at the end of the day, we need to determine how much nitrogen came by and how much got reduced. So I just want to caution everybody that it's not like, oh, look, the oil lasts twice as long as we anticipated. It's just we're getting a lot less demand for the carbon than we anticipated, okay?
That's the counter to what Ken is saying. In other words,
No, it's not.
well, in a way, he's saying, well, in fact, I was going to ask you, you said to find out why it's lasting longer. It sounds like he already knows the answer to that.
I don't.
If you think he doesn't know, or if you
Who,
don't
me or
know,
Matt?
anybody, then the question is, what do you do to answer your why question?
That was the question I was going
And
to ask.
just measuring more and more times the same thing doesn't strike me as
No.
a way to answer that question.
So, may I, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
Yeah, so I think there are 2 issues. One is how long will it last? But the other, and I was going to ask Kristen about this, are there any drilling logs or anything for the type of sediment and the difference between, because the 1-year dose lasted 1 year, right? Or 2 years? How long?
So the 1-year dose, we never saw a signal downstream, and there's a couple of thoughts as to why. So when they injected the 1-year side, that side had a lot more back pressure, so more clay in the soil. So one thought is that it didn't get as large of a radius, so there were holes in the line. So where the downstream well is, may very well be downstream of a hole in the line.
Right.
So from what we saw, we never saw, so that was one thought. The other thought was it was such a low amount of carbon, it never actually kicked in to process. So, but we had no way to tell from the data and the wells available what the real answer for that was.
Right, so I guess, yeah, so there's sort of two levels to approach this question, and you raised a good point, which is, should we be doing something even more significant, like getting some sediment samples at depth to determine what's different about these?
You're talking about getting permeability, because you're seeing
Permeability,
lower flow.
organic matter content, sediment grain size, stuff like that, yeah.
Or use the money wherever it might have come from to do, I mean, in other words, it seems to me the problem with this one site was that enough measurements and analysis wasn't done ahead of time. In other words, it was not predicted correctly.
I'm gonna jump forward. So the Snug Harbor project is marching forward. So the sort of questions about getting better stuff from drilling things, and getting a better understanding of
That's what
soils and
I'm
other things,
saying.
I would focus on
into the
Snug
new
Harbor, but in the
project.
meantime, I am willing to entertain a motion to create a letter to the select board explaining the benefits of finding a funding source, to continue to monitor what we've got out in Shorewood Drive, as well as, what was the second part, as well as the ongoing funding source for keeping ScienceWare engaged.
You mentioned the other PRB site that's coming up.
That's
coming
Snug
up,
Harbor.
same situation.
That's Snug Harbor. So to the,
Funding is to go initially, but not to maintain it, right?
Well, I think there's a year, we put in roughly a year or so of monitoring, but not beyond that. And, it's I mean, I think you hit upon an important idea, which is a more generalized funding source to look at how these various strategies that we're employing how effective are they in general. Because if you've got several $100 million of infrastructure out there, it might make sense to spend 1% of that to see how well it works and what we might need to do to improve it.
I'm looking for a motion.
I so move what you said.
Second.
Request that some funding to continue this, and here's why, and also to identify the funding source to continue the consultancy to the Water Quality Management Committee so that we can carry on as an effective committee.
You might consider asking to create a fund that's in place, like the housing fund. We have, so when the developer wants to do housing, we're ready to go, because we have the housing fund. And I understand that other ideas are coming forward with other funds potentially, so that it can be more nimble in the future, because it's difficult to wait for town meeting every once a year.
Let's stick with the first part of it, and then when it comes before the select board, maybe we'll make the pitch for some ongoing funding or whatever. So I've got a motion. I think I have a second.
Anybody second?
Any conversation relative?
I said second.
What's the dollar figure?
You said to sample twice a year, we need
I'd say 7,000.
7,000. And then for your annual contract, you're gonna say,
78,000 a year is what the existing contract
Yeah.
is.
so we'll put those numbers in.
No inflation?
Hasn't been inflated for many years.
And that doesn't.
Wouldn't you like to be?
I mean, it would be great, but
That doesn't include the other project, for future use in the other project, so just leave that.
Yeah, that's a,
Just point that out, that it doesn't include other future projects if you want to consider
yep.
something more.
Kristen's a great letter writer, so she'll work up a nice thing that says this helps us, and then.
Would you, can I ask a question relevant to the other project?
No, because we're going to vote on this.
Okay.
Then we can talk about the other project and reports of members and staff about where that project is. How's that?
You're the boss,
Just,
maybe Doug.
okay. All those in favor of the motion is made and seconded, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Can I just make one suggestion? Could you consider approaching the company, saying it's unlikely we're getting funding, this thing looks like it's doing really well, we'll allow you to do it for free and use it in your advertising.
Sure.
Well, the company isn't doing the monitoring, right?
No.
The monitoring's being done by.
Exactly. Tell the company it's going to stop, but they did it, they can take
Oh,
credit, we'll let them
Isotech?
do it, and they'll show how their job went far longer than they.
Didn't they already do some in-kind?
Okay, we're moving on to item 3. This is the annual election of Water Quality Management Committee Chair and Vice Chair. I figure this is a lengthy discussion and vote. I will cut it off at 6 o'clock.
Can we,
A year ago, I clearly stated that I thought over time I should not be chairman for life, and that others should accept this position. I entered into a Faustian bargain with Tom Duncan, in which I requested him to prepare the annual committee report. And he said, I will only do it if you agree to be nominated for chair again.
good.
I nominate Steve Rafferty as chair.
Second.
And I probably should have negotiated harder. It just shows I'm not a good negotiator. I will recluse myself and hand the gavel to you for this vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to say all opposed.
Congratulations. All opposed?
Opposed.
Congratulations.
And let me say, Steve, I think you've done a phenomenal job. I really do.
Thank you. I try to keep it humorous. Not always successful, but occasionally. There's a second vote. Before I nominate anybody, are you still willing to be vice chair?
Sure.
Okay. Does anybody think that Steve should not be vice chair and have an alternate?
You want me to recuse myself?
You should, yeah.
I think he's done a great job whenever you've missed a meeting and keeping
No,
things moving and on target.
Thank you.
Heartily endorse that.
All those in favor of Steve Layton as the vice chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those that are going to say no or abstain,
Abstain.
there you go.
Tag, you're it.
Since we're on this subject about chair and vice chair, we did submit, pretty much you guys saw the annual summary for FY '22. Some small changes were made, but I want to offer an attaboy. I used to run different teams, and then we gave out attaboys for people that did things that were really good. So I'd like to offer an attaboy to Steve Layton. He made 23 of 23 meetings last year. And Ed, you made 23 of 23 meetings last year as well. So kudos to both of you for being here and participating. Close behind was Tom Duncan at 22, John Waterbury at 21. I fell off the map a little bit. I'm at 20. And Ken and John, you guys made 19. So everybody was here. They did a good job. I'm honored to be your chairman because you guys come here, know what you are doing. You've done your research. Not 100% free of a bad idea now and then, but we're probably at the 95% of good ideas. And so it's my pleasure to listen to everything you've got to say. All right, we're going to move on to item 4, reports of members and staff. I've been alerted to the fact that Steve Layton has about a 30 or 40-minute presentation on things that are on his mind, questions of the meaning of life and where we're going to go from here with the committee. Steve, you're up.
Thank you. This is prompted by my attendance at the Board of Health hearing, and I just thought, you may have seen all these numbers before, but I thought of a way of putting them on a graph that I think people should think about, and I have one question at the end that I'd like your opinion on. this big square represents the 23,000 or so parcels in Falmouth. And you could sort of think of it like a map, but there's no north, south, east, west to it. It's not that kind of map. The bottom black bar, the darkest black bar, is the existing sewers, about 2,100. The next thin medium gray bar is sewers in progress, about 600. And then above that, proposed sewers, 4,600,
45.
4,580. I'm rounding it off.
Oh, okay.
Okay, if you want the nitty-gritty here.
Well, you're very particular sometimes, so yeah, I'm surprised you're not being particular.
But my point is to get a feel for this and not to be nerdy scientists looking at the third decimal place. The middle widest bar, and this and the proposed sewers are both subject to change. Kristen, by the way, made up this gorgeous graph for me, which is,
8 times.
I mean, it's amazing how she does this stuff.
It was a long afternoon.
And you know the saying about, do you want to talk to the man in charge or the woman that knows what's going on? Kristen is absolutely the woman that knows what's going on. They're subject to change, but they're not going to change by doubling or cutting in half or something. So the IAs achieved at TMDL is 7,600. Then there's a little group of lucky people that don't have to worry about this at all. They're not even not in nitrogen-sensitive areas. They're about 1,900. No, excuse me. So I said that wrong. Up at the very top are people who are lucky because they're in non-nitrogen sensitive parcels, which is about 5,000 of them. And then below it, that one is they're lucky because they're in a nitrogen sensitive area, but we don't need all the nitrogen sensitive areas to meet the TMDLs. And I just, none of these are totally insignificant. They're all sort of about the same. Now, Kristen tells me that correct me if I'm wrong, that these watershed plans are going to have to be, you hear a lot about when they have to be submitted. They have to be accomplished in the order of 25 years, right?
You get 20 years, and you can ask for extensions if there's financial and other reasons. But
Right.
yes, 20 years.
Right. It's not 80 years. It's not 50 years.
It's 20 years.
20 years, yeah.
20 years.
Right. And to install all of those sewers and all of those IAs with the possibility of extensions. Now, that's a whole subject in itself, how you do that. But the Board of Health has come along and proposed requiring IAs under certain conditions of renovation of houses above a certain amount, with the thinking that this is new production of effluent because more bedrooms or an entirely new house, and that the people have money coming out of their ears if they're paying to have all this done, so that the cost of the IA will be negligible to them. They've checked with the building department and found that there are about 100 permits a year for projects of this size. The reason I did the dotted lines is I'm not sure whether they corrected for permits within the IA areas or whether that was for the whole town, in which case you would have to make another correction, because there'd be no point in requiring someone to put one in a non-nitrogen sensitive area. Also, you obviously wouldn't make someone put them in if there was an existing sewer there. And they were nice enough also to say sewers that had been voted by town meeting. But the sticky issue in my mind, and they don't agree with me, is proposed sewers. They're saying, hey, some of those sewers aren't going to be put in for 20 years, what about all that nitrogen that's going into the groundwater in the meantime? And you can accept that if you wish, or the other way to look at it is, if that was so important, why aren't we going to make the people that are going to have sewers in 20 years put in IAs first? I think that's ludicrous. I can't imagine the town voting to make a certain subset of the town only put in an IA that would only be useful for them to, for 20 years, pay for most of it themselves, and then have to pay for a sewer. So I don't think it should be any different in the case of the Board of Health. But as I said, the other issue is, how do we accomplish all this in 20 years? I think it's great that the Board of Health is doing this as a pilot project to begin to really start kicking the industry, creating an industry. There were speakers at the Board of Health hearing about the fact that, is this a monopoly? Because the only company they hear from strongly is the Nitro E, Clean 2. Clean 2. And one lady in the audience brought up a contract and something about the investors in Clean 2 are, but I don't know, this is not firsthand for me, I probably shouldn't say it, but they're concerned about prices in a monopoly environment, and I sympathize with them. So it's a good thing that the Board of Health is starting this as soon as possible. But my point in putting it on the graph like this is, the left-hand bar is how many they will install in 10 years with their current algorithm, and the other bar is the next 10 years. So that little blue area over on the left is how much of that whole area is going to be satisfied by the Board of Health requirement. And that's all I wanted to say. I'm just interested in everybody else's opinion about any aspect of that.
So I'm going to suggest this, since this is not actually on the agenda as a discussion item, okay? You're bringing this up under reports of members and staff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I would welcome that we put this on to a next meeting for a more thorough discussion, Steve. I just think it's fair to people out there that may have an interest in how this all works.
Very good idea, yes.
And everything, not to get ahead of ourselves, okay? The only comment I'm going to make is that what you show in your gray bars there is in fact the contingency plan that we've discussed over the last year, should there not be any other things like aquaculture, stormwater management, fertilizer, or we get an outfall and we can put more sewers in and reduce the number of IAs. So
Absolutely.
I just wanted to anybody that's listening or watching at this thing and looking at this chart, it's a good way of looking at our contingency plan from last year and what the Board of Health's recent action may or may not have relative to the contingency plan, okay?
Right, can I just say 2 or 3 short other things? One is,
2.
how do I condense this?
4. But not 3.
I totally agree in postponing it, but tell people, think about it. If somebody wants to make another version of this for the non-contingency plan, that's great, or put error bars on this, that's great. But they won't be, it's not going to wipe out one of the bars.
No.
Or double in
It
some.
doesn't change the essence.
And
of
it
what you're
doesn't
saying.
change, it's a qualitative argument. It doesn't change the essence of it. And the other point is that this 1 year, there's a direct connection to what Amy was talking about, is the huge value of this preliminary plan being done within a year and coordinating that with the Board of Health.
So be it.
2 things.
Yeah, so be it. You're good, they're good. Okay, are there other reports from anybody?
Just one update. Kristen and I and Eric Karplus did drop the sondes into.
Oh, good.
Sonde into Perch Pond, so it is recording data
Nice.
as we speak.
Look forward to seeing that data. Ed?
Couple of quick points, just for those who aren't aware. The Board of Health held their second hearing, public hearing on the IA mandate that Mr. Layton mentioned on Monday night. They've, after a number of comments, both mostly in favor, but some against, they've closed that hearing, and later this month, somewhere in the middle of the month, we'll vote at a regularly scheduled meeting on that new regulation, and are looking at a targeted implementation date in the middle of November, November 15th.
Interesting.
So,
Thank you for that.
the other thing was, there was a remote site visit by MEPA, a Zoom conference. 22 people were on the 22nd of September, relative to the outfall ENF that was submitted. And Amy gave about a 30-minute presentation on that. And there were some questions that, were somewhat disconcerting, because it shows we have an outreach problem, that people who you would expect to know more about this project, to be aware of it and the details and the implications, were not. They were asking kind of basic questions about, are you going to be dynamiting? What is the pipe? Are you going to wreck the, what's going to wash up on the beaches? Are you going to disturb the boulders holding up the bluff?
No dynamites, not disturbing the
Well,
boulders, not having
Amy
anything wash
gave
up on the beach.
very wonderful, concise answers. People asked, basic stuff too, like, why not out in Buzzards Bay? And, we all know that answer. A lot of people do. But unfortunately, I think the majority of the people in the town, and particularly like in the Heights, don't know. So how and when we can more readily reach out to more people. People wanted to know, is as a result of this, would all the Heights get sewering? No. But, that was a good question, because I think that needed to be recognized. So I think it's important as a group, we've kind of put our brainstorming hats on and try to figure out how can we reach more people townwide about this project, why we're doing it, what it really means, and the timing.
I'm hereby appointing you to write a column once a month for the Enterprise on the value of the outfall.
I don't think that's the vehicle that's going to do it, because Katie does a great job pretty much every time we meet, putting the stuff out there. I don't think enough people reach the Enterprise. So become creative, and I'd be happy to collate. People want to send me ideas of outreach methodologies, great, because I've been kind of scratching my head for the past week about how can we reach more people and get that message there over the next year. So.
Do a sewer dance on TikTok.
Hey,
Wow, you just beat me.
Clean it tight.
the outfall's clean.
Well,
So, I'm not asking for answers now, but put your thinking caps on.
I agree. We have to keep putting the message out there in any way we can find to put it
Yeah,
out there.
what's a more effective vehicle than those that we've had? Going to meetings, Amy covered stuff on the outfall at precinct meetings, at town meetings, at association meetings, various other groups.
How about a table in front of Shaw's on Saturday morning?
No, I don't think that's going to work, but
Covered with brownies?
What about the precinct meetings? In previous times, you've assigned us to different
Yeah,
precincts.
so we got, when I get the precinct meeting schedule, you'll get assigned.
Brownies and lemonade. Come get-
Ken, what do you want to say?
I was going to ask if you were planning on making a general report at town meeting when they call for those, because I think that's an opportunity to make some of these.
I was going to have the vice chair make the, no, yeah, I got to coordinate a little bit with Amy about
Yeah.
messaging and what we're going to say at town meeting, whether it's, something at the beginning under committee's presentation. I don't want to overlap too much with what Amy's going to present relative to
Right,
articles,
right.
but yes.
Right, so there's the
Pretty much-
specific thing on the article, but a more general on where are we going?
We will.
What have we done so far? How effective has it
We
been?
will, and at the next meeting that we have, I'll probably come in with a draft of whatever I'm going to put out there and, get some feedback from this committee, okay? I think we get, is it 5 minutes or 3 minutes? We don't get, it's a pretty constraint. Is it 5? Yeah. there's always a time limit, but.
Right, so that's a way to get more.
Yep,
info.
yep, no, we do that every year. Any other committee reports? Jonathan?
So I had a lunchtime meeting with a gentleman named Bruce Walton, and he is a member of the New England Water Environment Association, NUIA for short. And he's doing some really interesting things in terms of calculating the economics of going to sewers versus EIAs. He's done very detailed cost estimates based on town of Barnstable numbers. And I think it's a person we want to talk to, but he has a model he's developed that's in the latter stages of beta testing now, and it's a septic sewer financial planning tool where he can look at different scenarios to meet the TMDLs and kind of come out what makes the most economic sense. We've talked about these sort of things in the past, but he has a tool that allows you to go through different scenarios and figure out how can I get to my nitrogen removal numbers, but do it in the most economic fashion possible. So rather than just saying we've got this number of sewers and this number of EIAs, what makes economic sense?
Sure.
You know? So he'd be willing, I think, to give a talk to the group at some point in the future. And he's starting to work on urine diversion to put that cost estimate in. So he's looking to get numbers for the installation cost for whatever 1 or 2 toilets,
Yeah.
what the hauling cost of the urine is. So you can do a similar type of analysis based on the amount of kilograms removed, and we can start comparing apples to apples. And the last thing I'd say is what's interesting is the number he used for sewering for kilograms removed per household was 10.34, which is pretty close to the 11 kilograms that I talked about last week.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah, with the concurrence of the rest of the board, I would suggest you keep the conversation going with them. I think it would be appropriate after we go to town meeting and get funding for the sort of townwide watershed plan, maybe to bring them in here as a, here's, an outside viewpoint, yada, 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 and integrate that back into what we're going to do for a watershed plan, More tools, the better. More tools, the better.
I would agree with that. I talked with him probably for over an hour last year about this whole project and where we are, and, he's been telling me, they have a newsletter that comes out, I think, every 6 months, updated on, and there's a lot of fascinating data and research available on that website. I don't know if anybody is going to the Rich Earth Institute Symposium. He's one of the roundtable
yeah,
participants.
I'll be going
so-
to the Wednesday session, yeah.
That's a good segue. So we're all aware that we are not having a meeting in 2 weeks. We're having a meeting in 4 weeks from today, okay? We're deferring to the Rich Earth Institute and the urine diversion powwow.
So the date of the next meeting is?
29th? 29th. You should have got something in your email canceling the mid-meeting month. We don't have a lot of burning issues in front of us. We've got to get through a couple things, town meeting, and then see where we're going from there, okay?
Can I ask a quick question of John about that last thing?
Absolutely.
I mean, you can tell this guy this is the devil's advocate preview.
Satan!
How does he do the cost of the sewer without a civil engineering study?
He's basing it, I think, on other towns' results and using a range of numbers. I can provide his write-up to the committee through Kristen, I guess. He gave me a couple of papers that he's put together with
That's
detailed
a
cost
great
estimates.
question to him when he's actually here,
Yeah.
you know.
Because, I mean, it makes a lot of difference if it's sand or rock.
Yeah, I don't know if he went into that level of like the lithology of the ground that's being, cleared for the pipe and all that.
I'm guessing if he's looking at IAs, he's looking at Cape Cod. And although there is a little bit of boulders on Cape Cod, unlike places like Pittsfield, where you have to blast your way through the rocks to put a sewer in, there's not a lot of rock on Cape Cod.
Except from here to the coast. that way.
Boulders, boulders,
Up in the
boulders,
moraine.
boulders, okay?
One other thing,
Go ahead.
I forgot what it was.
Okay. In that case, I am going to take,
Oh, I came back. I'm back. It was a little memory lapse there. Again, for
What are
information.
we talking about?
Wastewater. For informational purposes, Wareham, a week or so ago, submitted their
Yeah.
Grand Master watershed plan to the DEP. So it was published in the Environmental Monitor. It's about 192 pages. Skimming through some of that, it's pretty interesting because they have an outfall, which I did not know, in the Wareham River. That's too small and polluting a distressed body anyway, so part of their plan is a larger outfall, hopefully, and IAs and everything else. So it makes a good reference document just to see what is another community nearby submitting to DEP for their Grand Master Plan, I'll call it. So,
Okay, good to know.
Have
Thank
fun.
you. Thank you for being a diligent reviewer of the environmental monitor. No, it's good. I'm complimenting you because you.
I wonder sometimes.
No.
It is a great document to see what are other communities
No, it's a
doing.
way to stay on top of it. Thank you for doing that. All right. Does everybody have the minutes of the prior meeting? Put together by Kristen and elegantly
Oh, Tom slacked.
tweaked by Tom.
He didn't touch them.
I noticed he didn't touch them. It kind of concerns me, you know, and maybe doing that annual report just wore them out, but I read
I
them.
move we accept them as presented.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as written and presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm going to move on to the next item, for which there can be no discussion. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
John.